Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps out my channel a lot, and I appreciate it. Today I'm going to do 5 different styles of ring that involve hammered surfaces on it, because from my experience, if you take a plain ring and you hammer it, you are about 3 times more likely to sell that ring. It just does a really nice effect on it, and it catches the light nicely and really grabs your attention. So here's some different styles that you can make hammered bands into. So I hope you enjoy them. Before we get started, I wanted to thank a couple of groups of people. One, my patrons over on Patreon. That's my core supporter group, and I really appreciate all of their kind words and knowledge and financial contribution. Thank you so much for that, you guys. And the other group is my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 9,700, I think, and that is amazing. So let's get it up to 10. Thanks for that. I really appreciate all the nice things that you guys say in the comments and the suggestions, and you know, especially the things like buying me a coffee or the super thanks. That really helps with supplies, and I go through quite a few supplies doing 3 videos a week like this. So thank you for that. That helps a lot. All right, let's get started on these projects. So here's a couple of my design idea books, which you can find in my merch store. I found it in recent years helpful when I was drawing up designs to have a little book like this with kind of a background graph paper. And that has really made a big difference in my design outcomes. So these are available in the store in a number of different cover types. Today, we're going to be doing some hammered rings, and I think I'm going to start with this one here, which is just some triangle wire. I'm not sure what size it is. I'll find out. I'll put it in the description. But it makes for an interesting little band if you have triangle wire that's hammered. It really catches the light nicely because of the angles, I guess. But I like making those, and they're reasonably... you can sell them for a pretty low price because there's not much silver in them, and that way you can hit some different price points with your customers. A lot of these are like that, honestly. I do a lot of high-end stuff, and then I also need some stuff for people who just want to take home a souvenir that don't want to drop $300 or whatever. So these are good ideas. This one I'm just going to use some 18 gauge sheet of silver, brass, and then copper, and make them into little rings, and then we'll hammer them, and they should look pretty nice, I think. And they'll be kind of stackables. Third one, I'm going to use some low dome half round wire. I'm going to hammer it while it's flat so it has a nice texture to it, and then I'm going to solder some edges on out of 14 gauge round wire and then make it into a ring. And I found that when you contrast the smooth with the really shiny hammered, it really is a sharp looking ring. So I like those kind. We'll do a little spiral. I think I'm going to take a piece of 10 gauge square and taper it down a little bit, and then we'll make a spiral out of it and hammer it, and we'll see how that one looks. I've not really done this one before, but I'm imagining that it'll be kind of nice. Finally, we'll do a little one of the concave spinners. I've actually never done one of these on this channel, I don't think. Or, well, I did one for a pendant, I think, but it wasn't really for a ring finger. But these are kind of fun and easy to make. We'll hammer the inside piece of 18 gauge sheet, and I'll use some 14 gauge square wire to make a little spinner band around that, and then we'll cause these to be bent outwards so that it can't escape that. So that makes for a nice looking ring, and I think the hammering will really bring out the smoothness of the middle one. So we'll do those, and we'll start with the triangle wire, I think. So I'm going to measure around the 7, but add about an extra 1/8 of an inch or so to account for filing and the different geometry between a flat piece of paper like this and the stuff that we're using that has some depth to it. Has an effect on the final size. Alright, so I'm going to measure a piece of that triangle wire this wide. This will help me to be able to check which size it is. 2 and a little bit millimeters. Maybe 2 1/3 or something. 2.3 maybe. Okay, so let's get this end flat. If you wanted to, you can use the miter vice jig if you have one of those. A nice flat end on it. Pull this around the ring mandrel. Near the top so that I can later on size it down to the size that I want it to be, or slide it down to round it out. Because I'm not going to make it round to start. In order to get a nice solder joint, I'm going to bend these two kind of straight towards each other. My flat nose pliers like this. I'm not going to make a real sharp bend. Then, if you've never been to my channel before, I use hard silver sheet solder for almost everything, and a liquid flux called My-T-Flux that I spray on with a spray bottle. The torch is a Silversmith acetylene air torch, which is a great torch, and I really like it. And, oops, I guess I need to turn my tank back on. So let's cut some solder. I don't need a huge amount. You could just, after we flux it, you could just lay a piece over that. I'm probably going to pick solder it because that's what I usually do with most things. And if you've never seen pick soldering, it's a really useful skill. I have a video about it right here if you want to check it out. It's worth learning, I think. It really kind of makes things easier for me. Alright, so I'm just going to pick up a little solder here. Melt onto the tip of my pick. Heat this up to the solder flow point per se. Touching it. Should just flow right on there. Now we can cool this off. So I might just clean up the solder joint a skosh. And then let's round this back out on the mandrel. Try and fix any waviness that it has. Once in a while you get a little bit of a wave in it. I think it's kind of satisfying to hammer stuff personally. Almost therapeutic. Get rid of all that pent-up angst you have. You want to maintain shape and everything. I usually do much of the hammering on this. Oh, by the way, I find it useful to do this kind of stuff with a little chasing hammer because it's got a peen on the back, and I usually kind of keep it relatively polished so it gives a nice texture. See, the front of mine needs a little bit of sanding down and polishing because it gets dinged up after a while. Let's just kind of but I'm going to pickle that, and then we'll start making the next ones, which I think we're going to do the 3 different kind of stackable ones. Alright, since we're doing 5 things, for time's sake I cut these off camera, but I have one silver one, one copper one, and one brass one, all about 18 gauge sheet, and I tried to get them as straight as I could without spending too much time on them. I think we need to first solder these into rings, and then we'll shape them, and then we'll hammer them all. And then I'll probably neaten them out so that they stack nicely, because I'm guessing when we hammer them, they're probably going to get a little distorted. So let's do that. You can use hard silver solder to solder all of these. It'll work okay. Copper is going to be a little bit softer than the brass and the silver, and the silver probably is a little bit softer than the brass because there's zinc and brass. So I don't want to hit too ferociously on this copper one because it'll make it bigger than the other two if I get too crazy. Right now this is sitting at about a 7 1/4. Let's see where this one's at. Pretty close. I'm just going to remove the excess solder. I'm going to get rid of all of the solder on the surface, so it's just the little line of solder where the two come together that's holding it together. Otherwise you'll have a kind of a silvery colored spot there. Getting some wobbles. Straighten those out. If it gets too bad, sometimes you can set them on here and just use your plastic hammer to kind of get it straightened out. I'm going to just do the same thing on this one, and then I'm going to file. These ones are a little bit thinner maybe to match the silver one, and then I'll probably hammer the edge just like I did on those ones. So I'll be right back. I did kind of a light polish on it after I filed it so that I'd get rid of much of the file marks. I didn't probably get rid of all of them. I can see a few still there, but I just didn't want to hammer over those. To have a little bit smoother surface. So my next step is going to be to get it to wrap around this ring mandrel. And I think I may have to do a little bit of manual shaping. Which side looks the nicest to me. Square wire has a tendency to try to twist when you bend it sharply, so let's see if we can't keep that under control when we're doing this. Oops. Lost my grip. I'm going to spend a little bit shaping this better. Okay, I think I've had a pretty good size there. So I'm going to just start doing what I was doing on the other ones, which is to use this little peen on here. See if we can get this whole top side nicely hammered. See how nicely reflective that becomes? Really catches the light nice. So I'll probably spend a minute or two getting this straightened back up. If you have some of these nylon jawed pliers, that's good for this kind of stuff. We've work hardened it nicely too, so it's going to be a nice sturdy ring because it's going to be real stiff. The other thing about this sort of a ring is it's kind of adjustable. You could size it up or down pretty easily. And that's always convenient. But yeah, let's pickle that one along with the other ones and we'll clean it up and show you at the end. We can start on the next one. Which originally was going to be this one, but now is this one. I have this low dome half round that is, I don't remember which size, I think it's number 4 from Rio. But it's, let's see where my ruler went. pretty close to 6 millimeters wide. And let's figure out a size we want. Let's make this one size 8. I also want to cut a couple of pieces of 14 gauge round, about the same length, maybe slightly longer. I'm going to spend a little time getting this straightened out and then filed flat, as well as straightening these out. But this, if we want to have a texture in the middle here but not texture these things, we're going to have to texture this first and then solder them together and prevent the solder from kind of filling in the hammered areas. So let's get this cleaned up first and then I'll show you how to do that. If you're new to silversmithing, one thing that happens when you're hammering silver is that it starts to get work hardened. And work hardening makes it harder to bend. And so if you need to, like after I hammer this one, since I'm going to have to bend it into a circle later on, I'm probably going to anneal it before I even solder these on there. These I want to have, as straight as I can get them. Those are close enough for the moment. Let's see if we can't get this to be nicely hammered. Okay, if you try to bend this, it's really stiff now. So I'm going to anneal it. Annealing involves taking it up to kind of a reddish color. And then letting it cool off. Just to make sure we have a nice even spot to solder this to, I'm going to file the edge just a little bit. Alright, so I want to solder these to the sides of this, but I don't want to have a lot of sloppy solder. And so, the easiest way to do it would be to sweat some solder onto these first, and then just let it spread out along the length a little bit. Put those up against there, heat it till it flows, and it should solder along that seam without getting a lot of globbiness onto the hammered part. So let's flux those. I'll solder, I have a little bit of solder over here from previously, so there, there. Now the wires are going to be easy to get up to temperature, but the bigger piece in the middle here is more massive. So we'll focus most of the heat really right there, so that reaches temperature. When it does, that solder should start jumping on there a little bit, as long as it's in contact. I don't think I have any gaps, so let's cool that off, and then I can just trim that on the ends there, and then we'll shape it into a ring and solder it like we would any other. I'll flux this, but then I'm going to solder it from the inside in order to prevent as much of that excess solder flowing through. I don't want to have a big sloppy mess on the outside. So. Okay, so I'm going to heat this to the point where that flows. And I'll probably tip it over so that I can apply heat from the outside, because it will tend to draw all the way through the crack then. So far, so good. Alright, well, I'll get that cleaned up the rest of the way after it pickles. So I'm going to let that pickle, and then we'll come back to the last one, which is going to be a little spinner with some hammering on it. And I need some 18 gauge sheet for this. Okay, cut it about right here. Doesn't need to be near this wide, so I'm going to make an arbitrary decision. I'm going to put a skinny piece of 14 gauge square around it, so it really doesn't need to flare out that much. Let's go about like that. Everybody asked me about these shears. These are just little Fisker's craft shears, and this is about as thick as you can cut stuff with them. And this is putting a lot of strain on them, so they wear out faster the way I've used them, probably. Alright, I'm going to make this into a band after I file it a little bit, just like I just did with the other one, so I'll be right back. Alright, I got myself a nice piece of 18 gauge turned into a band. I think I'm going to quick take off some of this stuff before I hammer it. So I made my band, and then I gave it a little perfunctory polish so that I can go ahead and hammer it. And that's what I'm going to do next. So this is 14 gauge square wire. Ben started on this a little bit. I want to get it nice and round around there, and then I'm going to slide it up. I want it to be just big enough to go around this. But not too big. That's pretty close. I'm going to mark it with just a little bit of extra space because I don't want it to be so tight that I won't spin. And we'll see how it fits. I don't want to work it any further up the mandrel because it'll end up being too big then. Don't want that. Alright. I'm going to smooth this out with the Dremel a little bit, and then I'm going to let it pickle. And then I will polish these separate, I think, and then we'll put it on here and we'll flare either side so that it can't escape. And then we'll be done with this one. And I'll show you all 5 different groups of rings. So, alright. Next time you see me, we'll be finishing this one. So let's finish up the spinner ring, and I think I'm going to do it on my dapping block here. And to start with, I'm going to flare one side by hitting this from above. Starting there, we're almost there. That's pretty good right there. I don't think that can come off. But quite a bit of work. Okay, now for the other side, we have to put this one down. But this needs to be on here while we're doing it. See if I can do this without hitting my finger. I guess I could leave it off until I get it close. Okay, now we're getting close. Yep, I think that's about right. So, a little spinner ring with some hammered stuff going on there. Take a look. Alright, first off, we had this one right here. I polished away a little bit of the texture on this one, so I may go back and hammer it again. The second ones, we got the stackers here. 3 of those. I have dirty fingers. Those came out pretty good. I like those. All right. And then we have, which one? This one. I think that's a nice looking ring. Get a lot of sparkle on that one. And then we have this one here. So again, I polished off a little bit of that, although I like the kind of subdued sparkle as well. Even though it's a little rounded off, I still get a lot of light play on it. So I kind of like that. Maybe I'll leave that one like that. And then finally we got this one here, which we already looked at. So, all right. I'll take some better pictures and put them at the end. All right, well that was 5 different ways to do some hammer designs on your rings. I hope you enjoyed those. And if you did, make sure to hit the like button before you head out. You might want to stop by my playlist tab and check that out, because there's my videos have been divided into a whole bunch of different playlists to help you navigate my channel a little bit better. And I think it's helpful, especially if you're a beginner and you want exclusively projects for beginners. That'd be an easy way to find them. If you want ideas about how to make rings, there's a list that's all rings. So it's a good way to navigate the channel. So check that out, and then subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. The other thing is, check out the video description down below. There's some important links in there. There's some important links there. First, there's the information about my Patreon, so you should check that out, the different levels of that, and what kinds of things you can get out of that. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link, which helps me with supplies. There's a merch store where you get one of those nice design idea books, and I believe there's a couple of new ones going to be up pretty soon that have some funny designs on the front. And finally, there's a link to my website where you should go get some jewelry for yourself that I've made, because you deserve it. All right, well, thanks for watching the video. Take care. Happy silversmithing.